I'm back. This is part 15 of our series on trusts, estates, and securities. And I just want to expound a little bit upon this whole disposition of securities thing and the IT bulletin regarding that. It's through the income tax situation here. This is where you get your enforcement. People are looking for enforcement. How do I get my paperwork enforced? How do I get them to act on it? Well, you can't force people to do anything. Excuse me. And the only time I guess that can really be said to occur is a court order. And even then, sometimes people don't, obey a court order. But nonetheless, so we come from the perspective here, and regarding disposition of our securities. Now, understand this: that our securities, we're talking transactions and securities. That's what the IT bulletin is about, and specifically the disposition of these securities, which is basically the sale or trade for a valuable consideration, which is also stated in the Bank Act for Canada. And you'll find it in all your other bank acts as well, because that's basically banking is securities. All kinds of different names for these instruments, so on and so forth, and concepts, but it's all securities, nothing less. So it's the tax liability aspect here that involves the tax department, and this is the tax department ultimately where the enforcement at the end of the day, worst case scenario, comes from. If the party doesn't want to capitulate, then you got to do what you got to do, and I'll explain that. Just for example, when we give a promissory note to a bank for $100,000, they presume we abandon it. At that instant, it has received your property, your security, and they put it on the books as an asset for $100,000. Okay, 100,000. So they receive property that day on their books, like a store receives inventory. Where did it come from? How much did it pay for it? Blah blah. What does it owe on it? All so on and so forth. It adds to the value of the business, right? We get some more inventory in here, but they also got to pay for it. So they put these things on their books as an asset. And just talking about banks here, it's anyone that receives one of your securities, it becomes an asset on the books. Now, in the case of a promise to pay, it's stated on the face. Some things may not have it stated on the face, and that's why I say, like, your application for social insurance doesn't state a specific amount. But that's something else we're going to talk about here on the income tax. So I won't go too far into that here right now. So, back to banking, for example, or any place where you give a promise to pay, which is a security. They put it on their books as an asset. So at that instant, they receive property, your property, in this case, valued at $100,000. Okay, now if they're doing the business properly, they would show an expense of $100,000. So they receive $100,000 from you, a property in the form of a security. They cut you a check payable to the vendor for $100,000. No loan here, remember? This is how it should. This is what money changers do. This is money changing this that doesn't circulate to money as money to this that does circulate as money. It's just going through the license regulators, really. That's all that's happening here. That's, I guess, the true purpose of banking. It's just like I say, it's an even exchange. You give them $100,000 of property, it's your property, it's your credit, so they're just going to give you a check drawing on your own credit, essentially, and that's the output, the debt side, which I'm also going to talk about further later in this video. So the bank puts these things on their books. It's just using, again, the bank as an example here of a $100,000 note on its books. It's an asset. It's your asset. It's your property. So they have to report this, just like I say, a business brings in inventory. They got to do an inventory every now and again and account for all of this stuff, right? 15 of this widgets, 10 of that widgets, 500 of those widgets, all these different parts, and whatever it is their inventory consists of. And it's all in the books. That's what I'm talking about here, the books. So what they should be doing is reporting on there that, we received a $100,000 asset today, and we don't have any expense against it because we've put this out as a loan, but even then the bank's going to get paid back at the end of the day, so there really is no expense, no matter how you cut it. But they're not reporting to the taxing authority, whether it be Canada Revenue or IRS or any other taxing authority around the planet. They're not reporting that they received a property today valued at $100,000. And then, of course, that property is going to make them some money through securitization, so on and so forth, and leveraging their securities, which I'm also going to talk about in this video. And that's where the profits and gains come in, and they're not reporting that, you see, because the bank has taken the position that you've abandoned your security and the bank is the originator of the credit. I talked about this in a previous video. So to clarify that, so at the end of the day, once you figure this out, then there's a way to approach the bank to give them an opportunity to give you back what belongs to you, release any debts associated with the account or whatever you're talking about, mortgage, car loan, I don't care. Then there's also the profits, and again, if you look at the security, it's your tree. That's your tree. You own the tree, then you own the fruits of the tree, the profit and the gain. So you gotta get your security back, the release, and the fruits, the profits and gain. That's all yours to claim as well. And if the bank, again, bank, just using bank as an example, doesn't want to do that, and chances are they will call your bluff. Meaning they're just going to say, okay, we know that you can, if we don't do it, you can do it for us. And that's what you probably have to do here. Is that the bank's not going to roll over and play dead. So you would have to then file the paperwork on behalf of the bank. And there's tax forms to fill out for that, which is the same forms that the bank should be filling out when they receive this property through, like, as I spoke about, the disposition of securities. And so this the same form that the bank should be filling out to report that somebody come into our bank today and dropped off $100,000 asset, their property on the books. So we're presuming they abandon it, but nonetheless, regardless, we have to report that we received $100,000 property today. And then they'll also have to report any capital gains that might arise from that in the future as they leverage against it. As to say, through securitization, so on and so forth, bundling things up in their mortgages. That's another topic, but I'll get into some of that further later on in this video. Just want you to understand here that there's the enforcement ultimately through this reclaiming your securities process. We don't go to court. I said we don't fight here. There's no fight here. There is no fight here. We're not about to prove anything. We make our claim. We establish our claim, which we all have the right to do, and or not. And that's that. It's claiming something that belongs to you, or right title or interest, whatever, or property is something that's been with us for a very long time. And so that's pretty straightforward. But it's so this is how enforcement. So either the bank is going to comply and do the right thing and give you back, release the mortgage, release the loan, the debt, whatever, give you back your profits, so on and so forth, to do it. In that case, you see now they're in a position, the trustee, the obligations went with them to perform, is what you're saying here. So now they have to do the full accounting to you, so you know what they owe you, the estate. So everything's backwards. We're the ones doing the accounting to them right now, and it should be them accounting to us. It's all based on, and it's all because of the presumption of the abandonment of our securities, and we don't know what's going on. We do not know the rules of the game. We do not know how to play the game. So people, and just make clear here, filing the tax forms to report the disposition of securities is not limited to banks. It applies to judges involved in their court cases, the security behind the scenes, governments, and finance companies, banks, all of them. And and I want to touch again on furthermore on the enforcement aspect of it here. There's actually two methods of enforcement. The tax department being one regarding the disposition of securities that I've touched upon. The other is yourself, you. Standing firm, standing up for yourself, not letting the fear and the intimidation cause you to back down. And I know when people get into court, they just want to get out of there. And sometimes they're willing to, roundabout way, sell our souls, if you will, to get out of there as quickly as possible. And they count on that. They absolutely count on fear and intimidation. That's probably their biggest asset against us, is fear and intimidation. And I get why that happens and where that comes from. But again, I'm just going to reiterate here. There's a fellow walked into Ottawa court. He didn't have any paperwork in place, none. Okay, I was not there, but two of my friends were. And this man, when they called the name, blah, blah, for the case, the doors burst open. He walks up. What the F are you Fs doing with my effing name? He was enforcing his claim. He come in there and say, I'm enforcing my claim. He did by acting the way he did and saying what he said. In the manner he said it, very loud and very direct and blunt. Judge asked him what he wanted. So there's two aspects of enforcement here, yourself and then, of course, the tax department. And that is how people can get their claims enforced. Now, years ago, there's a woman dentist was in tax court for tax evasion, and it was what the judge said. I read the article in the newspaper on the airplane coming back from British Columbia, and it disturbed me because I knew what he said was BS. He said to the woman after she was convicted, "You want the benefits that Canada has to offer, but you don't want to pay the tax." See, I knew that was BS because whatever benefits it's perceived we get from the government, we're actually funding it. So it's really not. It's just, they'd like to claim it's a benefit, and people sign up for these things, but we're not being aware that it's our securities in the background that's funding the whole thing in the first place. So there is no benefit, just another crock. And to be clear here, all of their securities are leveraged against our securities. Our securities, the ones that is presumed we have abandoned, because if we didn't abandon them and they knew we didn't abandon them, then there'd be nothing to leverage against. The banks, governments, corporations, finance companies, the lot of them, they all do it. They leverage their securities against our securities. They do this through the process of securitization. Just to reiterate here as well, our public estates are the sureties. These estates are backed by the presumption that we voluntarily pledge our labor. Every time you sign on something, you promise to pay, promise to perform, whatever. There it is. And because of that activity, ultimately not having claimed our securities, the debt is added to, accounted to, accumulating and carried by our estates. And it is we, the men and women, are the ones that feel it. For us, it is real, even after death, so far as the accounting goes. Reclaiming our securities rebuts the presumption the securities are abandoned, rebuts the presumption that we, the originators, the source of the credit, the grantors, are minors or dead, rebuts the presumption we pledge our labor to make their securities and debt obligations good, rebuts the presumption you're a taxpayer. And reclaiming our securities puts an end to all of that nonsense, all of it. By doing this, we take back our wealth, our power, our productivity, right, title, and interest from those who have usurped it. We put the power, the control back with the men and the women. Those legal entities and their agents, they need us. We don't need them. They need us. And if you want to say, okay, we need each other, fair enough. I can work with that. But it's not, we don't need them. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. However, they got us believing that we do need them. And we're all born into that. I get it. And again, fear and intimidation are the primary tools they use to carry this out. Another little bit on debt here. The interest, the debt, must return to the principal, the source. It is the only way to effectively settle and close the accounts to zero balance at day's end. That what circulates as money is debt. Now, everyone listening to this, at some time or another, you've used that debt to buy things. No problem there, right? To get what you want. House, car, TV, furniture, clothing, whatever, food. However, this debt is issued out of our securities, if I can put it that way. We have claim to the debt. We have claim to the debt. It's our debt. You see, if it's their debt, it's bad, but if it's our debt, it's good. It's just a misunderstanding here, I think is why people don't, think that money is debt. It's debt circulates as money, and that's bad. I get it. Been there, done that. This is why when we reclaim our securities, we can hit them with the tax forms so we can get our debt back. It is also how we can draw down on the national debt. All that big national debt out there, that's what's owed to our estates. But until we reclaim our securities and do the recoupment thing, that cannot be returned to source, basically for cancellation. And I get it that people think debt is bad, that money is bad because it's debt. This stems from not knowing the mechanics of money making. To begin the mechanics of money making, you must have a surety, an underwriter, to take on the liability. In comes your public estate. That's what it is. It's the surety. Then your promise to pay credits the securities account. The check drawn on that account is the debt. Debt circulates as money. It is not the credit that goes into the securities account and credit that is drawn out of the securities account. It is credit in and debt out. Is that debt that must return to the principal, the source, the originator of the credit, your note, your property, the estate. Has to happen to get the account to zero balance. This is the significance of an uneven exchange, or the result of an uneven exchange. All of this is happening because of that uneven exchange I've talked about before. If the exchange were even, meaning you exchange your security / note for a check of equal value, dollar for dollar, the account would be settled and closed at zero right then and there. No debt on the books, nothing to perform, nothing into the future, nothing, done, finished, this equals free. This is free. Okay, so it's important to understand these little subtleties, but they are at play all the time. The thing we need, in addition here, the thing that we think the check is paying for, the home, the car, the TV, the furniture, the clothing, the goods, the services, has nothing to do with the transaction. These are objects of the mind, things we want. These are things of substance, and substance, as I've said, plays no part in this system, except you may lose possession if he has not taken control of your securities. It's all about the form, people. Form. The system sees and operates on form only. The exchange of, the buying and the selling of securities, form only. Certificated form and electronic form, and book entry stuff, of course. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the way things are being operated right now, there's a total uneven exchange. And that debt has not come back home. Whereas if there was an even exchange where you hand the bank, the money changer, we're talking about a promise to pay, which is a security, in exchange for a check, which is a security. Get it? It's like changing commodities, a pound of gold for a pound of corn or a ton of corn. Get it? Exchange, done. And at the end of the exchange, it's done. So I give you a pound of gold, you give me a ton of corn. Anybody owe anything? Yeah, it's all finished. So we're done. And the transaction is complete. Nothing on the books, nothing to post into the future, no billing, no invoicing, nothing. No reason for it. So same thing here. So when we go to the bank, which again, I'm just putting this out there, not telling people what to do, or certainly not giving his advice, and taking on these things out there, the understanding is not going to work for you, but people are going to do what they do. So you give the bank $100,000 promise to pay, for example, and you walk out of there with a $100,000 check. Now that check is payable to the vendor for something. This process is not used for padding a savings account or padding your wallet. No, it's to meet an obligation. So if you're looking for a house or a car, or a thing, that has to be, the check has to be payable to, not you, not to your estate, for a purpose. And the purpose is, like I say, okay, to purchase a home, to purchase a car, or take possession, whatever you want to call it, in the transaction, and or clothing, food, whatever. So none of this. People are thinking, I'm just going to. I've actually got emails from people thinking that they can pad up a savings account. That's no. It doesn't. It's not the purpose. If you can create the credit you need on the fly as you need it, what do you need savings accounts for? Like Mr. Jacques said, the purpose of money is to be created, issued, spent, and returned to source for cancellation. So I'm talking about getting that debt back to cancel it, so there's no more debt on the books. Books are at zero at day's end every day. And that's the accounting system. That's how it should be. So you do the exchange and you're done. So you give the bank 100,000 promise to pay. They give you a check for 100,000, which is payable to, say, XYZ car dealership down the road. You go down to him, you give him the check, and you get the car and you go home. Done. That's it. And because you've reclaimed your securities, even though the car may be registered, because you've not abandoned the security, remember the new vehicle information statement or the manufacturer's certificate of origin, which is all security. So you've secured that. So you have control of the car, not ownership. Government's holding the ownership piece of paper, right? You've got the equitable title. So whoever grants legal title confirms equitable title. Whoever accepts legal title confirms equitable title. And the government wants to receive legal title, so let them have it. I'm good with that. Just as long as you know you're the grantor / beneficiary indirectly. directly / indirectly, depends on the circumstances. So I wanted to do something else here just to close this off then. I'm going to do a screen share here. I'll give you a little insight here. Some of you may have heard of a fellow named Winston Shrout. Very well-known guru, if I can put it that way, in the commercial redemption thing for at least 20 years, if not longer. I think it's probably a lot longer than that. I don't recall the exact dates, but at least 20 years. And traveled the country a lot. Knows a very smart man. I was going to say very wise man, but maybe not necessarily, but very smart man, very highly educated, self-educated, so on and so forth, and securities, negotiable instruments, commercial redemption, commerce and general law, merchants, so on and so forth, and lien filings, that sort of thing, securing lien interests. And he ended up in jail after a court case. So just that's a little insight there, and he's, as far as I know, he's still in jail now. He was on the lam for a bit there, and but anyhow, God bless him. And it's for people like him that people like me are here. So hope things go well for him. So yeah, so I want to do a screen share here. This is a copy of his lien filing entered into his court case in 2016. Here it is here. This is exactly as I received it, except for this I added here, and a couple highlights down below I'll show you. But so here's the court dates, blah, blah, filing, blah, blah. There's fatal flaws in this with this notice of lien. And so you see here we got all caps, nothing new there. I'm just going to scroll down here. This was entered as evidence into his court case. As evidence. Notice of lien. Notice is hereby given that Winston Shrout has a valid lien recorded. You see, there's a problem right there. First fatal flaw, as you'll see in the actual filing itself. There's no mention here of a security / public estate. Nothing. Again, dates, proof of mailing, blah, blah, blah. Then we get down to here. Blah, blah, blah. Now we get to the actual lien, the UCC1. This was actually done in 2000, the original filing, which is using the court case here in 2016, 16 years later. So whatever he learned back in 2000, he stuck to it. So the first problem here you see is this. Here's the debtor. Here's a secure party. Now, when these names get into the computer system, they're going to look the same. They're going to look the same. And so because they look the same, you look at it, it's going to collapse this trust. There's no secure party. It's not there. This for sure is the debtor, but there's no secure party. So it just collapses to the original trust. It all reverts back to here. And there it is. That's one fatal flaw. That's why I say trying to fit. And that was my mentors made it very, very clear, as did their mentor, Bill, the fellow that does the Reclaim Your Securities posts. Trying to fit man into this system is a waste of time. A waste of time. Now, it's not that man doesn't exist, because it's your signatures there. You want to exist to the point, it's your signature on the promise to pay. No problem. But you don't want to be in the other end of that. You don't want to be in the person on the other end, like a debtor, taxpayer, borrower, any of that sort of stuff, or driver, a tenant. List is long. So it's okay to be on this end, like I say, on the grantor end / beneficiary end, but you don't want to be anything else in there on the in between, the taint. Employer ID number, we don't use this, any such thing. So anyhow, there's a first fatal flaw, trying to fit man into the system. And second fatal flaw is here, in this area here. It's a fatal flaw here. I don't know if you got any other notes here, but just let me check. No. So in this area here, there's a fatal flaw, and fatal flaw is he didn't secure the underlying security, the foundational security, as I talked about on our first video, introduction to trusts, estates, and securities. See, the birth certificate comes after the foundation, so the birth certificate is not the foundation. And if you don't have that foundation secured, don't take my word for it. Do your own studies and satisfy yourself. But there's nothing there. There is no basement. There's nothing. It's like a house sitting on sticks. on sand, on quicksand. And this is why, well, I will say that's, I'm not here to convince anybody, but that's why Winston is in jail. So he's been hanging on to this concept that you're securing this since the year 2000 and sticking to the concept of trying to fit man in there. Like I said, we did the same in 2001 when I was on the commercial redemption thing, the BBCOA redemption manual, and Roger Elvick put a lot of time into that. David Wynn Miller, sheesh, some other people, but they were the primaries. Fred Kybers, they were the primaries at the time, and so we would do the same thing here. We would put like Winston Strout, natural man created by God, and putting that down as a secure party. And I remember Judge saying to friends of mine, "It looks like you leaned yourself." So if you do this properly and put the proper secure party in here, then there won't be any of that nonsense. Like, it looks like you secured yourself, and you're certainly not trying to fit man into the system that's meant to keep man out. It's meant to keep man out because man's not meant to be in the system of the dead, and you don't want to try to fit yourself in there. People trying to fight their way into the system. Come on, it's meant to keep you out. Do you really want to start tangling with the dead in a world that's completely different than the world of life? Completely different. But we have to interface with it. I get that. So that's that on that screen share. So yeah, so Winston is a very smart man. He was a major player guru in the commercial redemption venue for 20 years or so. But even he lacked understanding. And that lack of understanding landed him in jail. Just and I did not share that Winston's circumstances to scare people, but rather to emphasize the importance of understanding the principles and the concepts in play here from the ground up. That's where we offer our Reclaim Your Securities information package. I get people have got the package, and I've stressed many times, and there is a reason I say this. There's a renewing of the mind going on. There's a lot of things we've learned along the way that I propose, I suggest you want to let go of. You'll figure that out for yourself, perhaps. But where I'm coming from here is people read through the posts. Now they start to interpret the Reclaim Your Securities information, and it gets tainted because they're applying things that they've learned and trying to fit what they've learned into the Reclaim Your Securities, the Reclaim Your Securities into what they've learned, and it taints it. It takes something that's I know to be perfect and taints it. Start bringing in this, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to do it that way. Well, then you're defeating the entire purpose. Reclaim Your Securities is laid out accurately. There's nothing to change there. The thing is to follow it, to learn what it's being said here, to understand the principles and the concepts. And it comes down to as you get further into it, it gets down to some very basic, simple principles. It's really easy. It's just like my friend says, the answer is simple. It's just a journey to get there is where the time is. And that's where people are going to fall down. It's like I'm saying some of these stuff going like, I'm not even going to answer their questions. If their questions aren't in line with the Reclaim Your Securities and they want to try something off the wall, or bringing in like some of their own concepts and, like I say, blending it in with a little bit of Reclaim Your Securities, that's like, I won't touch it. Hey, you're all free to do what you want with the information, but I'm not going to partake in any of that. Why would I? No benefit there whatsoever. And I know what I know, and I see what I see, and I've got what I've got, and I'm happy with what I got, and I'm secured. So it's like, I think I've said before, if the wheel ain't broke, why reinvent the wheel? The point is to learn the information it's almost like you take everything you've ever learned off the table, format the mind. Okay, start from scratch. Now read the Reclaim Your Securities, and it would be like a brand new birth, a whole new viewpoint. You'd see the world in a different way if it was possible to do that, just to erase what's in there. So, but anyhow, it gives you an idea of things, and that's why I'm emphasizing for people, because I know this information is finding its way out there, and I expected that. And that's fine. People are going to assume a lot. Good day, and just a little addendum to the previous part of this video. I talked about the intro to Trust Estates and Securities, little verbiage in there about the only way to confirm equitable title is to grant legal title. The one who accepts legal title accepts and confirms that the one granting it must have been the owner in the first place. Legal title becomes the written confirmation of equity. That was from Romley Stewart. Smart man. And so what I want to just touch on here today is every motorized vehicle has its own little registration of birth, whether it be an automobile, a truck, a tractor, a boat, transport truck, ATVs, Sea-Doos, personal watercrafts, things like that. So they'll have a manufacturer's certificate of origin or a new vehicle information statement, which is akin to a registration of birth. So keep in mind here, when you're the one purchasing the vehicle, you're actually the one granting that. So you're the grantor of that title to that, the title to the vehicle, the registration of birth to the vehicle when it's through registration. So you are the grantor. And remember what I just read. One who accepts legal title accepts and confirms that the one granting it must have been the owner in the first place. And was that true, right? You're the one that went to purchase, say, a $50,000 car, and that new vehicle information statement or NIVIS form is to come with the car. It's part of the property. That's actually what you're purchasing, but it's part of the property, and it's bad business practices for a dealership not to provide you with that. But we're not arguing with any of that. We want the trustee to be the trustee. We want the recipient of that new vehicle information statement, the registration of birth for the vehicle, to be the trustee. And so you're the one granting it. And so now they're the trustee. However, the bait and switch comes in here. It's then they give you a certificate of title. And now you're the one that's the trustee because now you've received something from the government. So it starts off, we grant to them, then which basically makes them the trustee. But then they turn around and give us a certificate of title, which is what we carry in the car. And that identifies you now, the driver, the operator, whoever, whatever, as basically the trustee to that vehicle. And that's why you have to provide insurance for the car, the property, car, boat, tractor, whatever, ATV. Also have to, license plate, renewal stickers. You're subject to all of that, and you require a license to operate these things. Well, if you've been observing and paying attention in our videos here, the same thing we do with the birth certificate can be done with the certificate of title to the car, so that can be endorsed back to the one that granted it. And by doing that, you now convert the holder, recipient, the custodian, if you will, of the MCO or the new vehicle information statement, putting them back on the hook as the trustee. So now they would have to provide the insurance for the property. They would have to provide the license plate renewal stickers, the license plate, so on and so forth, and permits, so on and so forth. And they're the ones who would require the license to use the vehicle. The true owner here doesn't have to do that. Remember, the one that's granting, the one that accepts legal title, that confirms that the one that granted it was the real owner in the first place. And every time you purchase something, you're granting these things. So even if you buy a used vehicle, there's still that. Remember what I said, these MCOs and new vehicle information statements, they are securities. It's just another one of those securities that they have presumed you've abandoned. So I just wanted to throw this out there for people. And if you put your thinking cap on, you'll see if you'll maybe come up with ways you can deal with things here. But there is a way to get the monkey off your back for having no insurance, no driver's license, expired license plate, expired validation stickers on the license plate, whatever the country or state or province requires, wherever you're located on the planet. And that's how you can get that monkey off your back. You'd no longer be subject to driving without insurance or driver's license or invalid sticker. You're not the trustee. It's someone else has got to take care of that. That's the whole point, right? And again, everything that's happening to us is because it's assumed and presumed we've abandoned our securities, and it's assumed and presumed we are the trustees. It's backwards 180 degrees. So, yep, that certificate of title to the car can be endorsed and returned to a particular office, and then that would convert that office to trustee of the property. And they would be responsible, that individual, that office would be responsible to provide the insurance for the property, the vehicle, the car, the boat, the tractor, four-wheeler, personal watercraft, and provide all the permits, the stickers, license plate, and licensing. So just different things you can do with this knowledge, this reclaiming your securities knowledge. And that's, like I say, there's so many possibilities here. And that's why I stress it's important to have the understanding of the reclaiming your securities, because once you have that understanding, the whole world opens up possibilities for people, and everyone can apply this in his or her own way. So on that, I thank you for putting up with me, for listening to me. God bless, love you, and I bid you adieu.